Hey guys, so this video is to outline Shadow Priest for PvP. This is a special video for me because I am a Shadow Priest. I spend 85% of my time on Shadow. The it's really funny. I just did a video for this, and I guess you're like going through the talents. I wasn't 100% on one, so I went out and changed it, and I changed my mind on how I wanted to work the Shadow class and give recommendations to you guys. I didn't want to say anything unless I'm 100%. So the mistake that I was making was mind trauma versus shadow mania. I found that mind trauma it uses your mind flayer, your mind seer to apply shadowward pain. So I'm like, oh, you go into war song, you throw out a mind seer right away, you dot everyone up with shadowward pain, you get a lot of insanity. It sounded like a nice way to go. Shadowward pain being your highest dot. I was like, this is it. But as you start PvPing and as you start getting around, you'll find that the Shadow Priest is glass cannon. The survivability isn't great. You have no damage reduction. You have no shadow form anymore for 15%. You have no you don't have 90% damage reduction coming off your dispersion anymore. You can spec into that, but you don't have that anymore. The way it's set up naturally now is you get a 60% damage reduction, and it'll heal you in return. So with that said, let me kind of go through the abilities and tell you what I've chose. So my talent tree is set up 2 2 2 3 2 3 1 2 2 2 3 2 3 1. My honor talent tree is set up 1 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 1 1 2 1. One of those things when you just look at it at a glance, every stage that you go through for the first tier of the talent tree is 2 levels. So you're going 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, then it jumps. I'm sorry, the first one's handed to you initially. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, jumps to 13 and goes up by 3s. So you're at level 13, 16, 19, 22, 25 on Shadow Mania. It's disappointing that we have to come that far to get this talent, just based on how viable it is for me in survivability. I've been staring at this tree trying to decide what's best as far as survivability, in terms of some of the abilities, like this pure shadow, increasing damage taken from dispersion by 35%, bringing it up to 90%, and it also will stop draining insanity during that time in case you get yourself stuck in a position while you're in void form. And then there's this ability, Fleeting Embrace, that will allow your Vampiric Embrace to come down to almost a 1-minute cooldown and heal 3 allies instead of just 1 ally. I found that in that tree, the Void Shield was the best way to go. If you can plan out your DPS properly, as you're applying your shield, you want to let your health go down a little bit so you can get a little bit of a health regen while your shield's in place before it falls off, if that makes sense. And then that will in turn lower the cooldown remaining on your shield so that you can reapply it and kind of do it again. So so with that said, that's how I'm running things. If you look through the trees, like I said, we don't have the damage reduction. We're really relying on heals and the DPS off the shield to convert into heals. The heals with the dispersion and the heals with your vampiric touch. So that was the exploit that I found. It was very similar to a warlock ability that heals you. So I started thinking about it and try it out. So Shadow Mania, having Vampiric Touch on 2 or more targets grants you 3 insanity for every 2 seconds. So you're increasing your insanity, which is a great deal. and you're increasing the healing of your vampiric touch by 100%. So, if your vampiric touch is healing the priest for 50% of 140,000, normally you're now healing for 140,000 over 18 seconds. So that's about 10,000 a tick, which isn't incredible. But then you have to think, you're trying to work the real Mania ability of this, of having vampiric touch on 2 or more targets, granting you the 3 insanity. So, with that said, now you have it up on 2 targets, and you're being healed for 20,000, coming off of both those sources. A tick for the full duration. It's a little more than that. It's more like 30. So, with that converted, with the heals and stuff, that 30,000 in healing coming back to you is really viable when you start getting into the real serious situations. And like I said, as you shield, you're getting healing back that way as well. You also have your vampiric embrace, that if you need it, you can wrap that in as well to provide yourself with a little more healing if the uptick isn't enough. But you will find that people are having trouble killing you, but it seems like their DPS is higher than your HPS, so you tend to melt. I found that you start getting vampiric touch up on 2, 3, potentially 4 targets in the rotation, start leeching back that healing when you find yourself in these serious situations, because if a Shadow Priest is going down, it's not going down generally to 1 target. He's going down to 2 or 3 targets, and if there's 2 or 3 targets, then you really have to be saying to yourself, I'm putting vampiric touch on multiple targets to get that leech back, and I'm constantly putting up my shield, and I have to start leeching, bleeding these targets down. And that's the mentality that I'm having, and it's working out great. I'm staying pretty undefeated right now in the battlegrounds. I was having a tremendous difficulty last week without Shadow Mania, just relying on the other survivabilities. This extra healing off the vampiric touch is making all the difference for me. So let me give you a little bit of my rotation and kind of explain to you the Talon Tree and what we've got going on here. So Shadow Word Void generates a lot of insanity, and it's a great ability, but it takes you outside of your general rotation. You'd be using it in replace of like a Mind Blast. It generates a lot of insanity. It's on a 30-second cooldown. So let's start comparing that to what else is in the tree. So your Mind Flame, Mind Blast deal 10% more damage. That sounds fantastic, and generate 20% more insanity. So what does the insanity mean? Well, for your Mind Blast, it means 2 additional insanity, and for your Mind Flame, it means like 1 additional insanity. So ultimately, you'd have to be doing like 6 casts to generate what the Shadow Word Void's doing for you, just generically. But with that said, you're doing 10% more damage with your Mind Blast and Mind Flay, which is also a nice ability on top of the Insanity regen. I feel that the way we've got everything worked out here, the Insanity regen is nice. This would be a nice ability to use while you're in the Void, because it'll help boost the Void back up and allow you to keep your rotation going maybe a little bit longer. But it's all situational. I found that just static DPS was great for me. Twist of Fate, after damaging a target below 35%, you deal 20% increased damage. This is great because when a target's below 35%, you're trying to get it down. And this is also where you're doing 20% increased healing. It's not me or them. I wasn't necessarily worried about that. Like, we're both bursting ourselves down at the same time, and it's a race for who's going to kill. Because, PvP does show us those situations from time and again, but ultimately healers should be in place. And I felt that was just, just not the right focus. I want to be doing high damage all the time, not just when a target's low, but all the time. In the next ability, you move 1% faster for every 5 insanity you have. So if you have 100% insanity, you move 20% faster. That's a passive, but considering your shield's on a 7-second cooldown and allows you to move 40% faster, I felt that was really all you needed. Um, you only need to move faster in specific moments, so I felt that that was the way to go. Masochism, when your shadow man heals yourself, its damage over time effect heals you instead. Um, you're talking about the upwards of 71,000 healing. Um, it could be good along with the touch, um, but what I found was it wasn't necessarily necessary. You want to have a speed increase. Imagine not having a speed increase and trying to move around in shadow. Um, someone gets on you, you're done. Chasing after someone would be a tremendous amount harder, especially if you have all these classes who are, intervening and blinking away, and now you have demon hunters that are dashing away, and rogues and feral. It's too much. It's too much. So you need to have a sprint yourself. Um, in the third tree, this mind bomb's really cool. It's kind of like an upgraded psychic horror, whereas like you would send it to stun a target, but then it'll explode and stunning all targets within 8 yards. Um, so keep in mind, it doesn't stun the target initially the way that the psychic horror would. It stuns after 2 seconds. So you kind of have to have a little foresight when it comes to this. But the thing is, when you're using this ability, you stun someone for 2 seconds. What did 2 seconds really do for you? Did it do a lot? I found that the fearing ability, the psychic scream, was still the best, as far as ripping people off you and getting away. It's up on a 1-minute cooldown, so the psychic voice lowers it back to the 30-second cooldown. The dominate mind, this isn't the PvP ability. It allows you to control an NPC along with control of your own character, but you can't use it against players. Whereas the default mind control can be used against other players. So that could be beneficial to you. Void Ray, we're at the 6th level, 60 tier here. So we got Void Lord, Reaper of Souls, and Void Ray. Void Lord, lingering insanity persists for 8 seconds after you've entered, after you next enter Void form. An ability like that, considering you're already getting a proc off of it, I kind of felt that it wasn't needed enough. When you look at Reaper of Souls, Shadow or Death is now castable on targets below 35% health, and always generates insanity as though you killed it. So the insanity thing is, if you hit him with Shadow or Death, it generates 10 insanity. If you kill the target with Shadow or Death, it generates 30. So it's like being able to have this ability allows your window to increase from a 20% window to a 35% window, and then being able to generate more insanity off of it. And then you have the Void Ray. Each time your Mind Flay or Mind Seer deals damage, you gain 10% increased Mind Flay and Mind Seer damage for 4 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. With that said, all 3 of these abilities have their pluses. The extra insanity off the Reaper of Souls is nice, but this one here, Void Ray, each time your Mind Flay deals damage. So sometimes you're slowing guys. I find that Mind Flay is used in succession in battlegrounds. Like I've found myself doing this multiple times, slowing a target, trying to just wait for my Mind Blast to come back. Stuff like that told me, go ahead and try to increase the damage coming off of my Mind Flay a little bit, especially if it stacks up to 5 times. You can increase your damage by 50%. In the next tree, I immediately had gone with Sanlan. increasing your damage of your vampiric touch and healing of your vampiric embrace seemed like a no-brainer to me. Vampiric touch being all over the place, and then that would in turn increase the heals coming off of the Shadow Mania ability. But it really wasn't helping the DPS much. You'll find that Vampiric Touch is lower on your DPS focus this time around, and that the Orticious Spirits here, the damage, it's decent, that it's ticking, and the insanity that it's generating, so it generates 4 insanity for every time one of your spirits hits the target, is necessary. Generating that insanity is great, because I'm choosing this ability, Legacy of the Void, down here, so I get my insanity up to 70%. At that point I can activate it, so it's not taking me as long to activate it. And then in this tree here, I'm using the Mindbender to generate insanity as well. That's one of my high abilities as far as generating insanity, because who's looking to stun a Mindbender? So you're constantly generating it every time it's swinging, type of thing. So when you're in cases where you're being slowed by rogues and paladins, you can rest assured that you're still generating insanity from spirits, from Mindbender, and such. So where we at? We went 2 2 2 3 2 3 1 2 2 2 3 2 3 1. Now we're going to go into the honor tree, which is 1 1 1 1 2 1 1 1 1 1 2 1, which is great that a lot of the stuff that I picked is in the first tree. Edge of Insanity was a really nice one, versus Driven to Madness. I kind of wanted to lean towards that, just because I found that standing up at 100% insanity all the time would increase your damage by 20%, and then you're powering into void form during those emergency moments you need it. You're increasing your healing and everything at that moment by doing that. But I found myself never at 100% insanity. I'm constantly using it at 70 because of the Legacy of the Void, and then I went back out and started looking at the tree here that I want to start rotating stuff going into Surrender into Madness or Mind Spike. And the answer for me was no. I felt that the damage was too low on Mind Spike, and having them embedded and trying to detonate it with the Mind Blast, it's very situational, especially if classes are getting away from you. And Surrender into Madness, who wants to die? This is a very great insanity building ability, but it's situational. I felt that being able to proc my void form early is just makes sense all the time. So I want to control on my medallion, so I went with the first tier. I think you'll find the same too. I mean, you can reduce the cooldown of all crowd controls by 25%, or you can make it proc automatically and reduce the cooldown to 60 seconds, but you have no control over it. I felt that having control over it when I needed it, when I'm not necessarily worried about being crowd control and being smacked around by one target. I'm more concerned about being crowd control and being smacked around by 2 to 3 targets. So that's when I want my medallion. In tier 2, yeah, I can get extra crits of 30% above 80% health, or I can increase my health, haste. I felt that increasing my static damage before I get into combat, and then 8 seconds after I've been attacked, it's back, was the way to go. In tier 3, I kind of discussed this already. The Void Shield. Putting a shield on yourself, all damage you deal heals you for 50% of the damage dealt for 5 seconds. So, you're weaving, you're finding yourself into a situation where you're dying. You want to make sure that you're keeping Vampiric Touch up on 2 targets, one more, to get that beneficial healing. And then you can rest assured that when you do pop your shield on yourself, that you are healing while doing the damage that you're doing. Similar to Vampiric Embrace, the Vampiric Embrace is really like a double redundancy. If you're getting smacked around really hard, at that point you pop the Vampiric Embrace, and you're healing for 40% of your damage and 50% of your damage, and it starts, you start getting 100 heals per second, which means that you're not really taking damage from one target. Um, so the fourth tier down, Driven to Madness, if you're being attacked, it'll grant you Insanity. I felt that it was really good because, like I said, you're not hitting 100% Insanity to get this bonus. Void Origins grants you 5 stacks of Void Form when you enter Void Form. I'll show you how to get that really quick as you enter Void Form from 70. So it wasn't necessarily like the most necessary ability. I felt that as you get smacked around, you start getting beat on. You want to be able to get increased heal and get into Void Form quick, and you'll find it starts happening really quickly if you choose that ability. And then in the fifth tier down, it's Shadow Mania. If you look at Psychic Link, your Mind Blast now deals 30% of its damage to all targets within 40 yards that are afflicted with your Shadow or Pain, which is great if you want to start trying to combine it with an ability like Mind Trauma, which is applying Shadow or Pain on your minds here. But as you see, they're in the same tier here, so that there's no way that that can work out. Putting Shadow or Pain up on 4 targets and then hitting one target with a Mind Blast and having the other 4 targets you applied Shadow or Pain to get hit for 30% damage, you're really only doing an extra 120,000. So you've wasted 4 global cooldowns applying Shadow or Pain. Yeah, they apply a little bit of damage initially, but then you're only doing 200,000 DPS off the Mind Blast. It just seemed very situational and very awkward for a PvP situation. And then on the other side was the Mind Trauma, which applies the Shadow of Pain on your Mind Flame Mind Seer, which to me was great. It sounded like I was going to walk into every battle, running Vampiric Touch into a Mind Flay, and my Shadow or Pain was automatically going to be applied to these targets, and I was like, yeah, and I wanted to go that way because it sounded like a cleaner rotation and stuff, but don't be fooled by that, because you need this heals, and you will see very quickly that this heal makes all the difference to Shadow Mania. And then the bottom of the tier is another depressing moment for me. So Psyfiend is doing great damage. It has intellectual targeting. So if I have no one targeted and I just spawn out my Psyfiend's going to go into combat and start fighting. It's dealing 4% of the target's total health and shadow damage every 0.9 seconds, reducing their movement speed and reducing their healing received. So reducing healing received, man, not enough classes have ever had that. I feel it's a great ability. It was a great ability for hunters to use with their trank shot back in the day. Anything that's reducing healing received is major. But unfortunately, it's way down there. And every time you reset prestige, you're not going to have it. So it's one of those things you can't become fully dependent on. But as I go into combat these days, I'm dropping that Psyfiend first, just because of how much DPS it's pushing out, and it's slowing targets. So people who are trying to get away from you, like, that's what I'm dropping. So that's my work through. I'm kind of gonna give a little rotation really here to kind of show you guys what's going on. So bringing out your Mindbender as fast as you can will help you ramp it up. So I go Vampiric Touch, Mindbender, Mind Blast, Shadow or Pain. At that point, I'm pretty much proccing the Void Form. At that point, you want to go into a Mind Blast, into the Void Bolt, because at the beginning, the Insanity is going down slower. When you find that it starts to become, very slow, at that point, you want to use your artifact ability to kind of freeze it. Another thing to be said about that is when you go ahead and use your artifact ability, you want to go ahead and use a Void Bolt first, and on the front and the back end of that, because it generates a nice amount of insanity as a package. So you'll Void Bolt, you will use your Void Torrent, which is the artifact ability, and you'll come back with the Void Bolt again. So as you can see, I'm at 70%. I'm about to proc, and I'm slowing my DPS to just kind of show you, what we're doing here. So if you have your Mindbender, so in my first rotation, as I'm bringing up Void Form, I have stages. I want to use my Mindbender to bring me into my first Void Form. As you get towards this second Void Form, you're going to want to use your Mindbender in the second rotation just to keep it going nice and strong for you. So I'm going to go ahead and proc it. Go ahead and proc my Void Form. Immediately Void Bolt. I'm up to 100. I'll Mind Blast. I'm even going to Mind Flay, because if you look up here, it's moving down very slowly with all the stuff. Now, mind you, I want to go ahead and put my dots back up. Your Void Bolt will constantly refresh your dots. So if you don't have your dots up before you go into your Void Form, you're doing it wrong. I only stopped to show it to you that way as such. So we talked about, using the Mindbender to proc the Void Form the first time. In your second rotation, you'll be able to use the Mindbender to keep the rotation going for a long time. You won't do what I did and be applying dots during your Void Form. That's like the worst thing to have to be doing. But you definitely want to make sure that they're up there ahead of time. So let's go ahead and start our rotation here. We're going to ramp ourselves up. And once I go ahead and get myself up, you see I've got my dots in place. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to proc my Void Form, I'm going to send it out. Oh, it didn't clip the Shadow Word Bane fast enough. Such a fail. Go ahead and see, I go ahead and Void Bolt, I freeze it with my artifact, I go ahead and bring it back, and I'm back up to 100%. It's almost like my insanity just started again. And then I can go into a Mind Blast, Void Bolt, Mind Flay, Void Bolt, Mind Flay, Void Bolt, Mind Blast, Void Bolt, Mind Flay, Void Bolt. That's what you constantly want to be doing, using as many Void Bolts as possible on either end of all your castables. It's definitely the way to go, and you'll find that you'll get yourself right back into Void Form, no problem. So I'm going to quiet down for a couple seconds. I just want to focus on my rotation. Everyone knows the shadow rotation is a little more serious, you can kind of see. Mind Blast into a Void Bolt. If you notice, I'm really keeping this insanity going, and that's really what you want. You're really increasing your damage by doing that. You always want to try to clip that Void Bolt right at the end of your insanity. It's really a nice critical hit. So I was just doing 150,000 right there before I teetered out. So I hope all this makes sense to you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'll be glad to get back to it. Please subscribe. Hope you like it. Take care.